Hello, hello. Welcome to another Cash Practice Training Tuesdays. Just got off a great call with my mastermind group. And one of the topics that came up today was based on actually a conversation that I had with my clinic administrator this morning as I realized that we are needing fewer new patients to stay relatively fully booked than I used to need in the past, and kind of analyzing why that is. Because it's a great thing. I mean, what's happened is we went back into the clinic. We're doing telehealth and in-person patient care, and we had so many people waiting to come back in the clinic. When we did that, we were slam booked for a while, even though we didn't have a whole lot of new patients. We certainly had some, but we were seeing 2 or 3 less new patients per week on the schedule than what I have always calculated in the past as being kind of the amount of new patients that we need each week to keep all of my staff's schedule full. So I knew, for the last month or so that I knew to expect a slowdown. Not to say that we haven't slowed down at all, but it's nothing compared to what the numbers would have said was going to happen. So before I talk more about that, first I just want to say that if you don't know how to calculate these things, it's not difficult, but it is really important that you know this. So first and foremost, you got to know what is the average plan of care, amount of sessions your average patient is going to come in. That can be calculated depending on your EMR, your systems. Maybe it's something you can automatically calculate. Maybe it's something you have to manually calculate. But even if you have to do it manually, it's so important that you know that number. Like in our case in the past, I had calculated that the average patient was coming in 6 sessions before they were, done. The average plan of care was 6 sessions long. And I'm not saying that, that means 6 sessions and everyone was at 100% and they were discharged. I'm just saying the average person that started with us was going to see us 6 times, which is not bad. I mean, could be longer, could be shorter, depending on your treatment style and your niche and the types of things you're treating. That's not the point. But knowing that number is important. And then you look at how many total, hour sessions or however long your sessions are, how much space is on you and your staff's schedule, right? So let's just to make the numbers simple. Let's say you're a solo practitioner and you've opened your schedule to 30 hours of patient care a week, like a very full, schedule. So 30 hours of patient care spots available a week, and you have this average of 6 visits per plan of care, right? Well, 30 divided by 6 is 5. So what that tells you is that you need, on average, 5 new patients a week, as part, 5 new patients, and the other 25 are going to be, returns. You need 5 new patients a week to, on average, keep those 30 spots relatively full. Of course, you're going to have times where, you have a few people discharge quicker or drop off. You have some that take longer and then you're like overbooked. But on average, that's how you do that math. So in the past, that's what I came up with, is that we needed about 5 patients a week between me and my couple part-time therapists. And lately, we've not been having that. We've been a little bit under that. And right around last week, this week, I determined that, okay, this is when we're going to probably start to see this drop off, and we haven't. And I'm like, why is that? And here's why. I kind of realized it talking through it with my admin this morning. Back when I made those initial calculations a few years ago, I had nowhere near the focus on following up with our current caseload and making sure that anyone that didn't schedule for the next week, or didn't have anything else on their schedule, if they're not dischargeable, if they're not 100%, the follow-up procedure that we have in place to get them back on schedule and to make sure that my staff is following up, the therapist following up, everything is so much stronger and has so much more focus and power behind it now than it used to. That what's probably happened is that all along back then, we had a higher drop-off rate because we weren't following up in the same way. And I didn't also train my therapist in the same way to speak with their patients throughout the plan of care in certain ways. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the end result being that probably our average plan of care now is longer. Say it's 8 or 9. So if we have 30 available spots, we have a little more than that. But if, dividing that by 8 rather than by 6 or by 5 makes a huge difference in how many new patients you need to keep a full schedule, right? And I'm not saying that you offer or that you're trying to expand plans of care beyond what is needed by that patient. I'm just saying that if you have less people dropping off when they're 80% better, because they've started to justify why they can see how they do on their own, or they don't really want to pay for those last couple sessions, and they're so much better than they used to be. That's what happens, is if you don't speak with your patients in the right way throughout the plan of care and remind them why they're truly coming in. It's not about pain levels. It's about getting 100% to the goal that you established from day one, right? It's about getting them completely 100% out of that limited, emotionally charged, limited status that they had when they came in. So it's whip and carrot. You're having them remember that they're not fully out of the limitation. You still got the whip, and the carrot is dangling in front of their head saying, hey, now you're doing 10-mile runs with no pain, but then it starts to hurt. And you got your half marathon coming up. We want to get you to 13 and a half. Come on. Let's book these last few sessions. So getting them to focus on why they actually started and why they need to finish throughout, along with when people do drop off, or when it's like, hey, I don't have my schedule yet, or I need to check with the family, or whatever. I need to figure things out. I can't schedule right now. We've got them on our lead and patient tracking sheet, which has an add-on. It's a Google spreadsheet, has an add-on where we can put dated reminders that will email us and say, follow up with so-and-so, and have all the information that we want to have in there. But these are the ways that we make sure things don't slip through the cracks. Also, in our staff meetings every Thursday, my admin, one of her primary roles getting ready for that, is to look at all of our patients in the past week and say, all right, who under each therapist has patients, which patients do not have anything else booked. Okay, either they're discharged and we need to write the discharge note, or they're not ready for discharge and we need to get them back on schedule. Okay, so the therapist is reaching out, the admin's reaching out, and it's not just a matter of sending a text. We use text, we use phone, we use email, right? A lot of people worry about badgering people, whether it's badgering a lead to come in as a patient or badgering a patient to get back on schedule. If you send one or two notifications or outreaches via those three platforms of text, phone, and email, it doesn't feel badgery or overwhelming like if you were calling 5 or 6 times, right? So using all of those different platforms and making sure you follow up at least once on each, but preferably twice before you give up, it will make a huge, huge difference. And as I say in this video, the title of this, if you like burning money, don't do this. If you like burning money, don't have a follow-up system in place, not just for leads that come in, but for your established patients. Because I'm telling you, especially in the cash pay world, when people start to get, 75, 80% better, they start to justify why they're good enough. And that is a killer to any practice, but especially to a cash pay practice, when maybe the out-of-pocket, cost per session compels them to kind of justify why they don't need those last few sessions, and that they can try to knock it out on their own or continue, just with their home program or whatever else excuse they make up. We get them back on the schedule because of our follow-up, and we keep them from dropping off in the first place because of the way we're talking to them and having them focus on certain things throughout the plan of care. Those things that we've implemented, especially since the pandemic, when I'm like, look, it's going to be tons easier and cheaper to get somebody to say yes to the last 2 sessions in a plan of care than it is going to be to get a new patient to say yes to the first 2 sessions of the plan of care, or a full plan of care for that matter. Way, way easier when someone's already done so well and you've got them on the schedule already. They've already been paying you money. You've got to make sure that you do not give up on that low-hanging fruit and are constantly just focused on new patients. If you've got a huge profit leak with your current patients because you don't have those systems in place for yourself and for your staff. So don't burn money in any economic climate, but especially in the one we're in now and the one we're going into. You've got to have these systems in place, folks. And they're easy to set up. It's a Google spreadsheet with an add-on and a weekly staff meeting, and making it a focus. It's made a huge difference. We've needed so far fewer new patients to keep our schedule full in this crazy time when a lot of practices are closing, we're hiring, and we're staying booked. And this is a big part of it. So I hope that this really was beneficial, that you take this and run with it. Clifford Yoon, whip and carrot, love it. Yes, that's a beautiful thing. There's a reason that analogies exist and that certain sayings exist. And that's an important one that we always keep in our interactions with patients. It's the whip and the carrot. It's the limitations they were dealing with before or when they started, and that they're slowly getting out of, or hopefully quickly getting out of, and that end goal. And as they get closer, less and less limited, if you're not focusing on that end goal and you're just talking about pain or whatever, you're not bringing it up at all, your drop-off rate is going to be way higher than it needs to be. And we cannot afford to have drop-off rates in clinics right now, guys. We cannot. And it's probably going to get even harder in the future. So please put these systems in place. If this has been beneficial to you in any ways, please give a thumbs up to this video. Share it with any practice owner or business owner friends that you think might benefit from it. Comment below if you have any follow-up questions. I really appreciate those coming through. If you're watching this in the replay, please also let me know in the comments if you're checking this via replay. I really appreciate you guys coming live and watching this after the fact. And I'll see you next Tuesday for another Cash Practice Training Tuesday.